It's definitely been a while since I've talked about a movie or a show here on the channel, and what I've got to talk to you guys about today is one that I'm very excited for, and one that has everybody talking, for good or for worse. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys liked that intro. It took me a little bit to come up with something a little different to kind of set this one apart because, as I said, it has definitely been quite a while since I've done a review of a movie or a TV show. Really, since any of us, I think, have done one here on the channel. I honestly want to say that when the pilot for Superman and Lois, it might have been the last one we had done, and that was, shoot, well over a year ago. So, as you can imagine, by the shirt, by the title, we're here to talk about the Batman, Matt Reeves' Batman. Definitely want to start off by saying that I personally enjoyed the movie. I thought it was really well done. Matt Reeves definitely did an amazing job telling a story. But he also did a really good job, in my opinion, of telling a story within the story. And as I go through the video, I'll kind of elaborate on what I mean by that. But, you know, the way that he pulled from comic lore, but at the same time made it very much his own movie, I thought was really cool. And what I mean by comic lore is, like, a lot of it you can say was pulled from Batman Year One. There's a little bit of Batman Long Halloween in there, and a few various other stories. But it was really cool how he did that to help give us the basis for his characters and maybe some of the relationships that were in the movie. But at the same time, he still put his own, bow on it, I guess, so to speak. Right. So with that brief little intro out of the way, let me go into like some positives and some negatives from the movie on this one. First of all, just I loved how dark it was because, yeah, I love the Marvel movies. Don't get me wrong. I like the the humor, a little bit of the campiness and all that. But there are times where I just you just want something a little darker, a little more raw, and that's really what this Batman was. I liked how Pattinson portrayed this Batman, which, for anybody who doesn't know, spoilers incoming, this is basically Batman in year two. So he's still very much learning how to do everything. He makes mistakes, which is good. They humanized Batman in this movie. He made mistakes. He got his butt kicked in a few of the fights. You can see where he's still learning how to do things. He has not learned how to be Bruce Wayne yet, or what it means to be Bruce Wayne. That was one of the biggest criticisms I saw of the movie was Pattinson's Batman and Bruce Wayne were too close. Well, yes, it's only year two. He hasn't figured out how to be Bruce Wayne and what Bruce Wayne can be used for at this point. And I think as the remainder of the movies that he's in, hopefully he gets at least two more, we'll see the Bruce Wayne character come to fruition. Batman is Bruce, so to speak, and then Bruce Wayne is his costume, is the best way to put it, I think. That's where he has to pretend and use things and do things, so to speak. Kind of like Superman, where Clark is the disguise and Superman is just being himself. It's definitely a new way that I've had to look at Batman, and not one that before this movie I had actually really ever thought of. I had always thought Bruce Wayne and then Batman was the other persona that he had to be to do things. And I've kind of flipped that with this movie in that no, Batman is who Bruce is, and then Bruce Wayne for Wayne Enterprises is who he has to pretend to be so that he can get things done. So yeah, the other things I liked was, of course, they really allowed Batman to be a detective in this movie. It's not something that you really got to see too much in any of the previous movies. You just would see clues. You wouldn't see him deducing things like the puzzles and the ciphers in the movies from Riddler and whatnot. the overgoing of footage was something really big with the context, which I thought was one of the most ingenious things I had seen. Was the context that basically recorded everything that he did into a video, into like a satellite feed. I thought that was really cool. Not something that I can recall them having done in previous Batman movies. So when he did that close to the beginning, I was like, okay, wow, that is ingenious. So definitely one of the cooler parts of the movie. And then moving along to some of the co-stars, Zoe. I really wasn't sure what to expect from her because to be honest, I've not seen Zoe Kravitz in anything else that I can recall. So this is really kind of my first time seeing her, and I really like this version of Selina and whatnot. She's not quite Catwoman, so she's still Selina Kyle, and it's very reminiscent in some ways of the Selina you get in The Long Halloween. Because of the subplot of the entire movie where Falcone is her illegitimate father, basically. And I thought the way she played the kind of like the gangster waitress, it really worked. She really put her own flair on it, and it was a very grounded and believable Catwoman. So I really enjoyed that. Not to mention, her and Pattinson had a really good chemistry with each other on the back and forth, which with Selina and Batman, it to me is a necessity for them to work on screen because, of course, of all their history in comics with the relationships. They've gotten married in some of them, so it was good to see that they had that chemistry and that it really, really gelled together. I really enjoyed this take on Jim Gordon. Very straight by the book, as Jim usually is, but at the same time, kind of willing to bend the rules to make sure that justice is served properly. Of course, he still doesn't believe in hard punishments and this and that. He still wants to do it by the book, but at the same time, he's willing to kind of do things outside of that book to bring it back in and make sure that justice actually is served. And it's a younger Jim Gordon. You don't get that too typically often either, and it was just good to see. Not to mention, the bad part. Oh, I should say. Let me move over. The only bad part though is he really got sidebarred in some ways because a lot of his interaction on screen, like let's just say 90% of the time, is with Batman there. So he gets a little off, pushed off in a way, and he's really an interesting character that hopefully in the movies going forward you'll see more of him maybe outside of dealing with Batman, and you could see how strong that character really is. I hope that's something that they do. That's kind of one of the negatives as well, is that while the portrayal of Gordon was good, it was overshadowed a lot because of the fact that he shared the screen with Batman like 90% of the time. Catwoman, not so much, because Selina could steal the scene when it needed to be. Whoever really needed to be the center of attention on screen between those two would be. And that's what I meant by it seemed like the two of them had a really good chemistry with the relationship. So Gordon, on the other hand, I think that's something that will build because, Batman and Gordon, that's something, a partnership that's going to go for a long time. So I think we'll see that one definitely expand as the movies go on. Riddler. What can I say about Riddler? Every time the Riddler character was on screen, whether it was an actual live shot of him, whether it was in the videos, he stole the scene. He was the center of attention. This is definitely one of the craziest takes on the Riddler I've ever seen. Not one that I personally would have ever thought of doing if I was directing a Batman movie, which is a good thing because it allowed Paul Dano to do something so different. And I loved it. I describe it as you get a little bit of Riddler, a little bit of anarchy, and then Joker sprinkled in there a little bit. It's a very real, very raw character, and it definitely shows that the Riddler, as he's always been, has always basically kind of had a weird bipolar disorder, and So, and you see that here. Probably the best scene in the entire movie was that 5 or 10 minutes with him and Batman in Arkham. That was gold, and like I said, that was the best part of the entire film for me. I could watch that scene over and over again, and I bet there might be things that I pick up that I might not have picked up the first few times, watching it. So yeah, I love it. And then of course the fact that they have him celled right next to Joker in Arkham Asylum, that's going to affect that character going forward as well. I think they did that purposely, and as we get to see the Riddler come back, I'm sure in future movies we'll see how that has affected him mentally. Now, like I said, there are some negatives. There's one character I haven't touched on yet, and that to me was Carmine Falcone. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that my original thoughts on John Turturro's portrayal were very different than what I'm actually about to say. My original opinion was just that he was too cool for school, and it did not work for me. Nothing about it screamed mob boss, this and that. Well, luckily I have friends that can give me a viewpoint and explain some things to me, and also just I went and researched Falcone a little more just to learn more about the character's background and maybe some more about how he's been written. And in doing that, thank you, Jay, by the way, for talking to me for about an hour. I now understand a little more about how Falcone is, and I'm a little more in line with how Turturro played him. I still think he was a little too cool as far as how he played things, but as far as him being calculative and in a lot of ways very ruthless, you didn't get to see it too much, but there were ways you could just see things, and just his look, it worked. But considering how everybody else in the movie was, maybe minus Gordon, it just felt like he might have been the weakest character, even though he should have been a lot stronger, because the whole subplot of the entire movie basically revolves around him and knowing what had happened with Bruce's parents, the surgery that they did to save his life in Bruce's house with Thomas Wayne, him being Selena's father, and this and that. He should have been, I think, a little bit bigger part in the movie. I'm sure that the conscious decision was kind of hide that all under so that it may not be as easy to pick up on. But at the same time, it's I really think that the character should have been a little more prominent, especially given the fact that you kill him at the end, basically at the end of the movie. So that's my complaints. That's where I think that he was a little weak. The character should have been on screen more, a little more prominent, and this and that. So that take that for what you will. Let me know if you agree with that in the comments or not. And then lastly, Colin Farrell's Penguin. Man, if you had not told me that was Colin Farrell before going into the movie, I would never have guessed it. I didn't know Colin had that character in him with the way he did the voice. Colin's Irish, if I remember right. And he's played, obviously, his fair share of American heroes. He's done Bullseye. He's played in SWAT, which is one of my favorite movies of his, and various others. But for him to have that kind of New York gangsta accent, the way he played the character and the prosthetics that they did on him, absolutely amazing. Definitely worth the fact that he got a TV show out of it. I'm actually looking forward to that. So that's definitely another positive that came from the movie. Is I think that Penguin series coming to HBO Max is going to be awesome. Hopefully they use everybody from the movie in that universe in some way, shape, or form, so that they can keep this as like an expanded universe from that. Overall, again, I love the movie. Like I said, they had the negatives. One of the other negatives, I forgot to bring that up, is I love the music, but it got a little redundant. It seemed like they used the same 2 or 3 songs a little too much. but overall the choice of the music to fit the tone of the movie really, really worked. The movie itself was dark, albeit sometimes a little too dark to see what was really going on screen, but it was dark in how it was lit, it was dark in tone. I liked it because it was very much a psychological movie as much as it was, of course, a superhero movie. What I hope that they do moving forward with the next Batman movies is keep it grounded a little bit. You know, don't get me wrong. Batman has like probably the best rogue gallery in all of comics outside of maybe like Spider-Man and a few others. His rogue gallery is amazing. But you know, a lot of comic book movies are very fantastical, very larger than life, where you have sometimes, like with Batman, he's got those villains and some characters that are like that, but he's also got villains like this movie where it still feels very grounded. And I hope that they keep doing that. They don't just jump into someone like Freeze, Poison Ivy, and whatnot for the next movie. He's got some villains in his rogue gallery that could really be used well. You can have, like I mentioned, Anarchy be a great one. Even if he's not a main villain, he could just be someone that's there. I think a really underappreciated villain is the ventriloquist. I know it mainly from the animated series. I've actually not really read the comics where it's the guy with the doll, and the doll's the boss, and the guy controlling him is kind of the puppet, so to speak. I would love to see that character. Mad Hatter would be amazing. I'm not really sure we've seen Mad Hatter in any of the Batman movies. You've seen him in the Arkham games. You've seen him in the comics, but what a Mad Hatter could do with things and how he could control everything and whatnot, I really think that that's the direction that they should go with the next movie. Before you bring in some of these other characters. Sure, we'd like to see Joker. Yeah, Joker's cool. Probably one of the best villains of all time. Top 2 for me. But he's been done. And just let's have something a little different this time around, I think. Just to expand on that universe and keep it going and whatnot. Especially since it's his early years and whatnot. Pretty much that's all I've got for myself. Let me know down in the comments, what did you guys think? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Give me your positives and negatives. Let's have a really good back and forth on it. And as always, if you liked what you saw, hit that like button, hit subscribe so that you get notified anytime that we upload a video. I'm sure here at the end, we'll put something up here on screens for another review for you guys to check out. Hope to see you guys back soon. You stay safe, stay healthy, and I will catch you next time. Later, everyone.